Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for being the first guest on this thing. We were talking, before we were filming about how, and I'm a dad, and I have 2 young kids, and some of the bands that I have on A-sides, kind of can't show them, to your kids. For some reason. So, my wife actually is the one who spawned this idea of doing the lowercase kind of thing. So thank you for being the first guest.
You're welcome. I'm honored to be here, and thanks for asking me.
So talk to me a little bit. I mean, you've been doing this for so long, and you just released another album, and you're about to do your Christmas shows. Has the mindset changed at all throughout the years, or is it kind of like you just kind of go in, record it, and you're done?
Oh, I mean, the mindset around everything I do has certainly changed over the years. I mean, part of it, I think, just is because of the way the music business and the world of people, how they get their music has changed so much. Obviously, 20 years ago it was sort of like, wow, what's Amazon? It was a very different time. And so for me, I guess in terms of actually recording the albums, the other difference is that at that time I was a music teacher with preschoolers, so I was thinking about them every day and, oh my gosh, what am I going to sing to these kids today so they don't get bored and they don't, run away from me while I'm doing it. Right. And now, I have a 12-year-old. I was not a parent when I started for like the first half of my career. Mm-hmm. And so I have a kid at home, and she's like almost too old to help, although she did give me an idea for one of the songs on this album. I turned to her and said, I'm not around kids enough anymore. I need silliness. This album is not silly enough, get something. And she came up with this idea of a song called Elephant in There, which is actually from her 4-year-old cousin, which is you go to the doctor because you have a sore throat and find out that actually there's an elephant in there, and the only way to get it out is to act like an elephant.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, that's a great song,
I act like a buffoon.
That's a good way to get your buffoon out or something.
Yeah,
get out. So anyway, a little bit different. I more like just sat down and said, hey, Laurie, write a bunch of songs. I used to do that on my way to work. Now I do it in my bedroom or walking around the block. So in some ways, the same.
And I know it's been a while, but at what point do you go from being a music teacher to being a performer? Because like I'm thinking, and this is a little different because when you're teaching music, you're obviously a musician. But like I'm thinking it like, okay, so I interview musicians, and then I'm like, I want to be a musician. But it actually happens, and that's what happened with you. So,
right.
So just talk to me a little bit about like, was it an epiphany? Like, I got to take this, I don't know. I was going to say on the road, but that's not what I really meant. But or did you just get encouraged from so many people?
Yeah, there were a few. I'd say there were 2 or 3 little things that happened. One was that, so when I was first working with the kids, I couldn't find music that worked with them very well. I got some great advice, which was basically what I call sing it, don't say it. Mm-hmm. Just put it all into the music. And I realized those kinds of songs were hard to find, so I started making them up. And then parents asked me, well, my kid loves your songs. I don't know what they are. They come home singing about a fish or a dinosaur, and all I know is Old MacDonald. Can you record them? Mm-hmm. So I started to make recordings. Can you come and do my child's birthday party because they love music and they love these songs, and you're the one who knows how to play them. And so I was also in, at the time when I sort of switched, I was in an all-female cover band. Okay. And we would play out on Long Island, and I'd get home at 4 a.m, lugging my amp up 4 flights of stairs, and then pass out and have to set the alarm for like 3 hours later where I had to get up and shower and drive to a birthday party. Yeah. And I remember one time I did that, and I thought, wow, I played for 4 hours last night to people who were drunk and yelling Freebird at me. Mm-hmm. And now I come to this birthday party exhausted, but every person here is so happy, and they're yelling Victor Vito, which is something I've written, mm-hmm. and everyone's dancing and not like sort of staring at me and waiting for the next guitar solo. Yeah. And I just thought that's what I want to be doing. So since I had been recording, and I wanted to support the albums, I started doing more like shows that were kind of a step up from the birthday parties. Mm-hmm. And I realized I think I'm going to try and follow this and start my own record label and see what I can do.
And that was so much harder back then. Actually, it's probably still even more impossible. Where I was going with this is now you can just do something, post it online, and hope that you strike lightning in a bottle. But even, what was it, 20 years ago?
Yes, it was 20 years ago. It was the late 90s.
At that time, like actually starting a label and getting music out there and actually have it happen, was there any lapse in time, or did it just kind of take off right away?
First of all, people who, kids that I was teaching, their parents, they all bought my albums right away. And then they would have me do these parties, and they would buy 20 albums and give them out in their goodie bags. Then those people would find out about it. I had wonderfully supportive parents who would drag me to kids' stores, which at the time they still sold cassettes, which is what I was making. And I would say, "Hi, this is my kid's album. Do you want to sell it?" And they started not only selling them, but then I got store owners who were very excited about it. And it was just a little different than what other people were doing at the time. Sort of pre the whole kindie rock thing, which now there's so many people doing great music. It's a little bit of a different world. But they were really excited, and they would send it, like I had a woman here in New York who sent the cassette to their friend in Chicago and someone else in California, and suddenly they were selling my albums in their stores.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so a lot of those things just kind of built upon themselves.
I know that I'm a published author, and I know that going into the children's book market is extremely difficult. They say, like, that's the toughest thing. What about music? Like, cracking into the, like, kids' music kind of genre?
I think so. I mean,
a little the same?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that you have to it's a lot of word of mouth, right? And then what I got lucky was, okay, I live in New York. Someone who worked at the Today Show had a kid. They got one of my albums in Buzz in their goodie bag somewhere. Kid fell in love with it, and then that woman pitched me to be on the Today Show. It was like, this is a really cool thing. Like, get a kid, a musician on here. And so, like, then being on television, suddenly, nationally, right. I mean, that was the day where, after I couldn't get like the smallest Rounder Records, like the smallest record label on the phone, I was getting calls at home from the distributor for Barnes & Noble. I remember being in my pajamas, the phone ringing, and someone saying, "Hi, we're looking for Two Tomatoes records, someone named Laurie Berkner. This is Alliance. We distribute to all of the Barnes & Nobles across the country, and we're getting calls across the country for these albums, and we don't know where to find them." And I said, yes, this is Two Tomatoes Records. You're talking to Laurie, and then suddenly I almost had a worse problem, which was that I didn't have enough albums to send out immediately or any means to really do it, because my record label was in my one-bedroom apartment. So I hired a lot of friends to help and send out CDs. Yeah, it was it was a fun time. So, getting exposure, and also now being on TV, not the same thing as it used to be, because everyone's got apps and different ways of, on demand and YouTube and just very different ways of absorbing the culture. So, what I think it's really neat that those things change all the time. So I don't know if it's differently hard, I would say now. Talk to me
a little bit about, hey, here's a segue. I just brought up kids' books, and you had mentioned you have 2 coming out?
Yes. Right. I have a deal for 3 books, actually, but 2 are coming out next year. It's with Simon & Schuster, and was kind of funny and random that the first book they wanted to put out was We Are the Dinosaurs. They told me the publishing date, which is March 21st of 2017. Okay. And it happens to coincide with that spring release is the same time I released What Do You Think of That?, which was my first album. That We Are the Dinosaurs is the first song on that album. So it was published 20 years prior. So we have sort of this 20th anniversary.
Full circle kind of thing, too. That's awesome.
And in the meantime, I made an EDM dance remix of it this past year. It's the bonus track. It's the second bonus track on Superhero. Yeah. So it's sort of
How do I not know that?
I don't know. You got to go home and listen. You have to go. There are 23 songs. I know it's hard to get to the end.
I'm going to take my kids to Ibiza, and we're going to like
Oh, it's really fun. It's really, really fun. And it was so fun to do it too.
Yeah.
So, and I did it because there are a lot of kids who grew up with that song. And on YouTube, I'll get like, hey, I'm 14, but I still think you're the coolest, and I grew up on your music. And so I thought, well, what would be neat and nostalgic?
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, there are, 3 and 4-year-olds who love listening to that beat, and they love it too. So it was a really nice way of kind of bringing those two
You don't work it into your live show,
together.
right? Like,
I haven't yet. I don't know how I would
planning
do
on it?
that.
You're gonna have like Steve Aoki like pop up and like throw cake at you or something.
Just keep giving me ideas. Dropping the bass.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And before I end this, because I always ask this of all my guests, and this is appropriate now. I have 2 young boys who, by the way, saw your Tom's commercial songy about the toothpaste. And
right. So Tom's of Maine asked me to write a song about brushing your teeth for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the silly brushing song.
My kids totally don't last the 2 minutes. But anyway, where I was going with this is, if you could offer words of wisdom, I have a 2 and an almost 5-year-old. If you can offer them some words of wisdom, aside from brushing their teeth for 2 minutes, which is a great song, by the way.
Thank you.
Can you share something so that whenever they're old enough I thought they're probably old enough now to find YouTube, but to actually watch this back, just any advice, words of wisdom you can share with them?
Well, my first thought was I would actually prefer to ask them if they had advice for me, because I feel like I learn the most listening to kids that age.
I'm going to go home and ask that.
No, it's true. I think that's how I write most of my songs, is listening to kids.
Yeah.
And but if I had to say something, I think I would just say follow what works and what you love. And I feel like that's how I ended up here. And that's always been a really good motto for me. And I think that's a good thing, because then you'll end up doing something you like. And I think people are attracted to that. Yeah. So follow what works and what you love.
And brush your teeth.
For 2 minutes.
Try. All right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
A pleasure.
Yeah, for me too.
Thanks.